stay indoors advisories issued in multiple U.S. states as life-threatening toxins fill the air. That's from MSN. Also from MSN, Americans warned to stay inside and lock windows as toxic air spreads across the South. Newsweek also covered the expansive toxic air mass that prompted dangerous air quality warnings from Arizona to the Carolinas. Newsweek further stated, quote, "The cause of the elevated pollution levels was not immediately clear." Really? Not clear? No idea? Newsweek's cluelessness or cover-up about the contamination sources should come as no surprise. Certainly there are many contributing factors, but the elephant in the equation that is always and intentionally completely omitted are the climate engineering weather warfare atrocities raging in skies all over the world. Endless parades of geoengineering jets spewing their massive payloads of sky-covering, highly toxic nanoparticle filth into our atmosphere, all of which, of course, settles to the surface, where every living thing is exposed, every breath we take, contaminated. Question: how long can you hold your breath?
It's about the fact, an uncomfortable fact, but it is a fact, that we have the technical ability to do this. They are all fast-acting, they are cheap, and they are fundamentally imperfect. There are problems of how you control something where an individual country can have tremendous leverage over the whole planet's climate, and where there are winners and losers in ways that really could be unpredictable. And I mean, not to frighten you, but I think you can imagine scenarios that lead to war.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection.
There's all sorts of ways you could do this, but the standard idea has always been spray sulfuric acid in the stratosphere, 20 kilometers over our head, and use that to stop the planet warming up.
The example many people cite was when the Mount Pinatubo volcano exploded. And all of this ash went into the air and had a cooling effect on the Earth.
And so people have long proposed since the mid-60s that you could artificially add dust to the stratosphere and cool the planet. Not that this would be a good solution for global warming, it would not. But it does show the way we're steadily developing the powers to manipulate the planet with comparative ease. That sulfur in the lower atmosphere is masking some of the climate warming from CO2. So
is this the global dimming or something?
Yeah.
Other leading ideas basically to emulate what big volcanoes do, put material in the stratosphere to reflect sunlight.
So the problem is the following. If you add SO2 to the stratosphere, SO2 doesn't condense. So you might want to put alumina in. Alumina has a very high initial refraction. It's very small. It doesn't coagulate. And you could engineer particles to have particular properties. You can get them above the stratosphere. You can concentrate particles near the poles. Costs are so cheap that the richest people on the planet could perhaps afford to buy an ice age. It's extraordinarily cheap. I knew it was cheap when I found that they were quoting me in tons. It's also true that particles, as they get bigger, fall out a lot faster. We sort of step back and think, okay, well, how would you actually make particles in the stratosphere? This is really engineering now. If it was aerosols in the stratosphere, it would likely be put there by airplanes. Start with a fleet of just 2 or 3 kind of modified business jets. The basic idea is that if you let a plume off on an aircraft by just changing some little details, you can actually get much smaller particle size distributions by doing this kind of spraying. So there are all sorts of side effects. I'll get to them in a second. But if you put sulfuric acid in the stratosphere, for example, you could deplete stratospheric ozone. Smaller size means more surface area, but more surface area means less ozone.
Is the stuff in the stratosphere going to be killing some number of people that are going to be sacrificed?
It's an obvious concern.
If it kills 1 million people and we're only doing 1% more, we're just killing 10,000 more people.
You can do math.
Okay.
But that's, so killing people is not the objective here.
The NTP toxicity study that was done by the United States government. It was released on November 1st, 2018. They did it on nocturnal mammals. They used 1G, 2G, and 3G phones. Okay? This is way before 5G. In those animals, they found humongous problems. You can look this study up on the internet. Every G causes a different resonance problem. Like 1G isn't equivalent to 5. 4 isn't equivalent to 5.
And you mean like different tuning fork issue?
Correct. Certain people have different mitochondrial haplotypes. We also have different skin types. Every single screen, have you ever stopped and asked yourself why we need Dan Huber's glasses? Because they have found, through the programs that the government sponsored, at Tulane Neurosurgery and Neurology, it's called MK Ultra, that they were able to control people through light waves, wires in their head to figure out how they can control the behavior of monkeys. That's actually was done in a place close to where I went to medical school. I knew about all of these studies.
So we can be controlled by light waves?
No, not we can. We are.
We are.
Okay? Update your knowledge base. Why does every computer have a blue light screen? Why doesn't it come pre-loaded with Flux or Iris? Well, there's a reason for that. Do you know what the reason is? Because the blue light lowers your dopamine and melatonin level so that you become addicted. Who got that information first? Was it the CIA through the MK Ultra program? No, it wasn't. It was the mafia. You know how they got it? It's how they build Las Vegas. They put a city in a desert, in a geopathic stress zone, has shitty water, shitty magnetism, but great light. And then what they do, they put casinos out there, blocked all the light, and put one-armed bandits in there that made nothing but blue light. You know what the mafia found out by doing that? They didn't have to use a gun to stick you up to steal your money. Then they got even smarter. Then they started getting really pretty girls deliver you alcohol drinks for free. So dopamine levels fell sooner. You gave them your money faster. But, hey, can we somehow stop putting the wires in the monkey's head and maybe think about how to do this differently? Because you know that wires in the head deliver electricity, brain works on a DC electric current. That should mean that it must work on light at some level. Well, along comes the people in Silicon Valley in the 50s and 60s, and we get semiconductors. What do we know about semiconductors? When you put electric into it, it makes what? LED. What does LED stand for? A light-emitting diode. That's kind of interesting. So when you see the science developing all at the same time, and you realize the criminals were smarter than the centralized doctors. Didn't I tell you that story about the Colombian drug cartel? Isn't this funny how the same thing is happening again? So, a guy named Delgado, who's a PhD researcher, he went down to Mexico, where you took your mom, and he put the wires directly into the bull's head and put the guy in there, and they had a remote controller, and they stopped the bull right away from running in to the guy, electrically. So then the next part of the experiment was
without electrocution, just electric.
Oh, no, you're not going to get
waves.
electrocuted. It's just electricity.
Yeah.
You modulate the frequency. Look, it's just like Lutron shades you have in your house. You turn it up and down, the light goes up and down. Same thing with these controllers. So the next step in their program was let's get rid of the wires. Let's just put a microchip that's a semiconductor in the brain, kind of like Elon Musk is doing right now with Neuralink, right? Scary, huh? And what do? They were able to control electrically, photoelectrically, wirelessly. So then what did they next do? They said, could we use light to do the same thing? And guess what they magically found? That when you use light, you can control mammals. Their patent attorneys, they own all the patents for blue light technology through screens. Do you think that potentially that all of these things have been used to control different things around you and doing different things? The answer is yes. Why is digital babysitting so successful for parents? Because the baby becomes much easier to control. Have you ever tried to take an iPad away from a 2-year-old that's already addicted to it? One of the things it cleaves to beta endorphin. What is beta endorphin? The natural opiate that your brain makes. So guess what? When you're around this electromagnetic pollution, you lose that beta endorphin, so you need an exogenous hit from dopamine or from... That's how this works. This all came from this study. But I want you to know it graduated from covert work done at institutions like Tulane, at Johns Hopkins, at the Mayo Clinic, at Harvard University. Then it jumped into big tech. Remember the old screens? We didn't use those screens that used to play those stupid video games. Now they became blue lit. And guess who owns all those patents? The guys that control the algorithms. Oh, didn't I mention algorithms to you about centralized medicine? So let me ask you a question. Do you make more or less money when you have obedient idiots as your target audience?
This is wild. So the long wavelength light, red light, infrared light, etc., that's the heat from the sun that you feel. It's part of that heat that you said. That long wavelength light is not the light that burns your skin. It's not the wavelength of light. And it was present in incandescent bulbs. So incandescents are, even if you see a white incandescent bulb, it's got short wavelengths, so it's got blue, it's got green, it's got yellows, all the way out to red, and in some cases even infrared. That infrared and red, we'll just call it long wavelengths. Believe it or not, beautiful data on this from Glenn Jeffrey's lab, University College London. It can go into and through your body, and it actually helps, this is a loose term as I'm using it, charge your mitochondria. The mitochondria, there's water in that area, and the water absorbs the red light. If you've ever gone swimming, you've gone down, snorkeling or something below a certain depth, you lose the reds, okay, because the reds get absorbed. Oh. So your mitochondria function better, you increase ATP production, your metabolism increases in the presence of red lit, long wavelength light to the skin. This study has been done. Shine long wavelength light on somebody, watch blood glucose levels in a blood glucose test, and it's blunted. Now, the LED lights that are commonly used now, or most everywhere, they are truncated so that it's all short wavelength and medium wavelength light. And that short wavelength light, in the absence of long wavelength light, has been shown to damage the mitochondria. There's a kind of a niche group online, different from the butthole sunners, so that are very bullish about this idea that the switch from incandescents to LEDs, and not just screens, but general lighting, is causing disruptions in mitochondrial function. This used to be considered crazy. This was like chemtrail crazy, right? But now we're starting to see from animal studies and human studies from Glenn Jeffrey and others that people's vision gets better when they get in front of an incandescent bulb once a day. If they get sunlight, which also has long wavelength light, your vision improves because of improvements in mitochondria. You can, again, better blood glucose regulation. This study just came out, eating near a window or working near a window improves blood glucose regulation. So, I'm not paranoid. I have LEDs in my home, right? But if you can get outside and get some long wavelength light from the sun without getting a burn, that's the trick.
Screens are blue lit. The reason none of them are red lit, the reason none of them pay attention to circadian biology is because that original technology was developed in a government program that Bobby Kennedy knows about, and I happen to know about because I went to medical school at LSU. For those of you who've never heard about Operation Paperclip, you think it's all conspiracy theory. So at Tulane Neurology and Tulane Neurosurgery in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, the CIA started a program there where they would do all these crazy things to monkeys. The CIA wanted to see how they could control things things utilizing different things like drugs and things like that. Where the neurosurgeons got involved, which is my clade, we would drill tops of the heads off, put wires into the thalamus, put electricity in there, and kind of see what kind of behavioral changes we could have. One of the guys that was in that program was a guy named Professor Delgado. When he saw that we could control the behavior with the wired device, he said, what if we do it wirelessly? So he checked it in monkeys and checked it in bulls, and it turned out you can do it wirelessly with RFID chips and semiconductors. Then the CIA took it to the next level. They said, well, since this is electromagnetic radiation, what if we did it through light through screens? And it turns out you can. And that's the reason why all your computer screens have the frequencies they have. So why is this all important? Well, the person that set this meeting up between me and Bobby is the patent attorney that made sure that Google and Meta have those things so they can control the things that we all do. Where did the original idea come from that started off in MK Ultra with the CIA? You're going to be surprised when you hear this. It came from the mafia in Las Vegas. They wanted to build a new city in a desert. They enclosed it all, blacked out the windows, invented slot machines that were blue lit. And they found out that they didn't have to take a gun, stick it in your face to steal your money. Then they even got smart. They said, let's give people free alcohol while they're doing that. And they found out they got the money quicker. And that's when the CIA got the idea to start this program. That's really how it started.